Hi everybody. In this video I want to show you how you can start leveraging specific tools in ChatGPT, namely deep research and GPTs, to help you build hyper-specialized tutors for training purposes. And as an example, I will show you how I have built a GPT that can help my students to train them in conducting customer interviews when they want to explore pain points for a new startup. It's always a very important part of my entrepreneurship course because I emphasize to my students that if they want to start building a startup, it's very important to get a good understanding of the pain point that they want to solve, and getting a good understanding requires engaging in customer interviews. Now, doing good customer interviews is actually not that easy. You really need to start building the necessary skills, and that's why I decided to create a GPT to help my students to do so. And let me show you kind of the different steps that I executed to build this GPT, and then I will also illustrate the GPT. So as a first step, I actually went to ChatGPT and enabled deep research. And more specifically, I asked it to create for me a specific report. So you can see here that I have enabled the deep research option and that I've written a prompt saying, create a report on best practices for conducting customer interviews when exploring pain points for developing a startup. Make sure to include insights from the MOM test, because this is actually the book from Fitzpatrick on which I rely in my teaching. So the MOM test, it's a very good practitioner-oriented book on how to do customer interviews. So this is simply the prompt that I did, and I asked it to create a deep research report. And as you can see, after quite some time, it then creates this full report for me. As you see, quite a long report, which you nowadays can also easily export as a PDF. And so if you click here on the export, you can download it as a PDF. And actually this then provides for me a quite in-depth report on best practices of doing customer interviews. And of course you need to double check, but in this case I checked the report and it really provided a very nice, insightful summary on how to do the MOM test approach for customer interviews, and it even provided some additional insights from other resources. So for me, this was already a perfect document to start from to develop a tutor for my students. So now we can go to the next step, and I will show you how I can now leverage this document to build a GPT as a tutor. So here you can see where I started building my GPT. And when I build GPTs, I always use the configure mode. Now it's important to realize that if you want to build GPTs yourself, you need a subscription. So in the free version of ChatGPT, you cannot build GPTs yourself. You can use GPTs but not build them. So for this, you really need a subscription. So here I'm in the configure mode, which is the mode that I use most of the time. You also have the create mode where you can kind of build GPTs by chatting, but I prefer the configure mode. So what did I do here? I gave it a name. So I'm saying, look, I want to build a customer interview trainer. The purpose of this is to allow to train and optimize your customer interview skills. And then I gave my instructions. And so my instructions is, what does this GPT needs to do? And in this case, it was actually quite straightforward. So I'm saying, look, the user should provide information on which pain point he or she wants to conduct a customer interview for. And second, the user needs to provide a description of the persona that he or she wants to interview. So this is kind of the input that the user needs to provide. Subsequently, based on that input, the GPT should initiate an interview where the user should function as the interviewer and the GPT should function as the interviewee. And at any point in time, the user can request feedback on the quality of the interview. And in that case, actually the GPT should analyze the interview and based on the knowledge that I have provided, evaluate the quality of the interview. And so the knowledge that I provide here is actually this document that I created with deep research. So I've now simply uploaded this PDF into the GPT, which is kind of the knowledge base for the GPT to evaluate the quality of the interview. When you build GPTs, you can also kind of enable additional things like web search, canvas, image generation, or even coding. For this GPT, that actually doesn't make sense because I want it to mainly rely on my document. So in this case, I actually disenabled all these options. So let me now show you how this GPT works so that you get a bit of a feeling for it. So let me now start using this GPT. So I can just say start, and then typically the GPT will be enabled. And now, as expected, we need to answer 2 questions. So I need to explain the pain point and the persona. So now I could, for instance, argue. And actually what I typically do here is not typing, but I will use this dictaphone, which is actually very straightforward. So let me use that now. I want to explore the pain point of monitoring and paying energy bills, and the persona that I want to interview is a single person living in a rented apartment in Germany. So now I can just process the text, and now I can enter that as a prompt. And now you will see that it has created now a persona for me that I now can interview. So we have Lisa, age 32, living in Berlin. I get some additional information. And now we can start conducting the interview. And so now I can ask a first question. And again, I will use now the dictaphone to make it as realistic as possible. Hi Lisa, thanks for doing this interview. I have a first question for you. What is actually the hardest part for you in terms of monitoring your energy bills? So now it's processing, and now we should get an answer from Lisa. Yes, so the hardest part is understanding, get the bill once a month. Also the layout of the bills is kind of technical, and I don't get real-time updates or anything. It's all after the facts. And now I could ask a kind of follow-up question. Why is it actually so annoying for you to not get real-time updates? What is the problem here? And again, we can now continue the conversation. So now she says, I'm flying blind. Month-end just said, 70 good luck. I had real-time info. So here we get a kind of additional information. And now, for instance, I could probe and ask for a specific example. Could you give me a specific example of when this problem was really prominent in your life? And now we move forward, and let us get one more answer here. Yeah, so now we get a specific example from our interviewee. And for instance, now could be the time that I want to get some first feedback on the quality of my interview. Do I actually do a good customer interview, or is there room for improvement? So now I can just type in, please provide me some feedback. And now it should actually analyze my interview and give me some feedback on the quality. And you see here, I now get some input on what did I do well. So following kind of the MUM test, it likes that I did a clear focused questions. I asked a why follow-up question. I asked for real-world examples. This is really what we learn our students that they need to do. But I also get some suggestions for improvement. I let the conversation breathe a bit more. Watch for subtle assumptions in your wording, that you're not kind of biasing the interview. And I could even use more follow-up routes. And actually, I think these suggestions make a lot of sense. So here you see how I could quickly start building kind of special tutors for my students that can really help them to get real-time feedback on learning a particular skill. In this case, the skill of doing a customer interview. And I really think that this approach can be applied in a lot of different settings. So we need to train employees or students for a lot of different things. We can, based on deep research, create kind of highly specialized documents with best practices, and then we can build a GPT on top of it in a very short amount of time. So I hope this can be helpful in your own educational trajectories or for your training needs. And if you like this video, please don't forget to like and subscribe. And I hope to see you again for the next video. Thank you. Bye.